Beneath a strange old oak tree, the search began. In 1795, 3 boys found a deep pit built a century before. They were convinced it held something of immense value. The clues uncovered were so tantalizing that men have been digging ever since. Today, 2 centuries later, the search continues for the buried treasure of Oak Island. One of the world's most elaborate treasure hunts is presently underway on Oak Island off the east coast of Canada. In the 1600s, the waters of Nova Scotia were a haven for pirates, eluding British and Spanish pursuit. Most searchers have assumed the brilliant buccaneer, Captain Kidd, chose Oak Island to conceal a priceless treasure. Others have expected to find Spanish gold plundered from Mexico and South America. Still others believed the lost crown jewels of Marie Antoinette had been buried there. As early as 1720, strange lights had been seen at night on the island's coast. 2 fishermen who went out to investigate vanished. So for nearly a century after, everyone kept his distance from the uninhabited island. The mainland farmers considered it taboo. Finally, in 1795, 3 brave farm boys set out on an adventure which In Search Of has recreated. Daniel McGinnis, the leader, all of 18, was more fascinated than frightened by the specter of danger. He convinced his 2 best friends to come out and see something peculiar he'd discovered the day before. On an October morning, the island looked friendly, almost inviting. Daniel took them to a great old oak tree. Over a clear depression in the ground reached a curious bare limb, which had been sawed off a long time ago. The limb had obviously been used to hoist something very heavy.
Let's dig.
It must be pirate treasure. They planned to have it up and be home by lunch. But they hit flagstones set in a circular pattern made of rock not found on the island. This was the first of many puzzling barriers to their search. 10 feet down, they struck what sounded like a wooden treasure chest. But it was instead a platform of very old logs set tight into the pit, caulked with ship's putty. They also noticed pickaxe marks in the hard clay walls. Clearly, they were re-excavating a very old shaft. They were careful to be home by dark. Days later, they got down to 20 feet and hit another log platform. There was no way they could have known, but this wood has since been carbon dated to 1575, the era of the Spanish conquest. Weeks later, yet another layer at 30 feet, and winter was coming. With only picks and shovels, the boys had dug as deep as they could, but they weren't ready to give up. They convinced their neighbors that what they had found could make them all rich. In the next few years, a doctor named Simeon Linz raised enough money for a major excavation.
Whoa! Whoa! Get up. Back over there. Whoa! Back. Whoa! Back. Oh. Back. Gee. Back. Gee.
Every 10 feet, they struck another log platform with layers of charcoal and ship's putty, all the way down to 90 feet. If there were treasure, it was buried not only deep, but ingeniously. It was late one day when they found the strangest clue of all. They sensed they were onto something important. But the letters were like none they had ever seen. Was it a sign they were close to the treasure, or a warning? They worked very late that evening, and finally, probing at 98 feet, heard the welcome sound of a large, hollow vault. Night forced a halt. Returning at daybreak, they fully anticipated being rewarded for what had become 8 years of hard labor. Their expectations were to be thwarted, however, by a diabolical trap that waited in the pit. 30 feet down, Guinness had fallen into water. At least 60 feet of water had somehow filled the pit during the night. The treasure they had almost touched now seemed as far away as the moon. Yet a half-century later, the inscription on the stone would be decoded to read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. This promise of wealth inspired the next search group. When pumping failed to lower the water level, they sent down test drills. Samples from the drill indicated 2 large chests encased in cement. The men on the surface could hear loose metal rattling around inside the chests. And then, one small fragment came up. The engineer wrote in his report, 3 gold links resembling an ancient watch chain. For the first time, here was evidence of fabulous wealth. In 1850, another search group noticed the water in the money pit rose and fell with the tides. Exploring at nearby Smith's Cove, they discovered stone-lined drainage channels leading toward shore. And even more bizarre, tons of coconut husk fiber, like a blanket, under the entire beach. This giant man-made sponge kept ocean water flowing into the channels. But the nearest coconut tree was 2,000 miles away. Their hopes of blocking the water went out with the first tide. Frederick Blair, a Nova Scotia insurance salesman, formed another search party in 1893. Their worst suspicions were confirmed. They found the stone channels led all the way from the beach to the money pit. No wonder they could never pump it dry. The last charge seemed to blast through into a subterranean cavity. They hoped this had finally stopped the flow of water. To check the results, they poured concentrated dye into the money pit and kept a close watch on the shoreline. The dye came up, but to their amazement, on both sides of the island. They finally realized the entire island had been engineered to continually flood the money pit. By the end of the 19th century, it's recorded that 2 workmen had died, and the diabolically designed money pit still kept its secret. The next century would bring even more provocative clues and greater tragedy.